Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of House of the Dragon, Episode 5, We Light the Way. We are officially at the midpoint of House of the Dragon Season 1, which is really exciting, but it's bittersweet because this is the last episode we get to spend with Emily Carey and Millie Alcock and Paddy Considine, who play Viserys, Alicent, and Rhaenyra, knowing that episode 6 we are going to have a huge time jump and bring in the adult actors of Alicent and Rhaenyra. So in a sense, it also feels like a mini season finale of the first half with our younger actors. So with this episode, it opens us seeing the Vale, which just looks like peak fantasy to me. It's beautiful. I love the ambiance of it. And we get to meet Lady Rhea of the Vale, who is the wife of Daemon. We finally see her, and she brings up to Daemon that his own brother chose a little girl over him, and she's like, what's your plan, Daemon? Are you going to strike her down? And then she figures out what his plan is, that he is just going to try to marry her, and when she figures it out, it's too late, and he pushes her off the horse, and then she's like, I knew you couldn't do it, thinking he wasn't going to actually kill her, and he does kill her with a rock. So this sets up in this episode all of Daemon's plan is not stopping. He's just going even more into trying to marry Rhaenyra to give himself more power and take the throne. So this leads to one of my favorite scenes in the episode where we switch to Alicent's story, and she is saying goodbye to her father, Otto, who has been fired by Viserys. So this episode we see isn't this big time jump. It's the smallest time jump, if any, than any other episode before it. And Otto's like, you chose Rhaenyra over me. You wanted to believe her, as did her father. Remember, the big thing that Alicent did last episode was by trying to believe in her best friend Rhaenyra that she was innocent, she more painted it towards Daemon lying to Viserys. And this is where she might feel guilt in the future about somewhat causing Otto to be banished by trying to convince the king that Rhaenyra was innocent and that she wasn't lying. But Alicent says to Otto, like, hey, your informant made a mistake. And she calls Otto out for being so relentless to have Aegon be the heir, to the point where it's like, maybe if you didn't even have this spy, we wouldn't even be in this mess. Otto has a great line here, though, where he's like, war will happen if Rhaenyra takes the throne. The realm will not accept her, but to secure her claim, she will kill your children. You know it and you choose not to see it. This is great writing. This is the best moment we've seen of Otto to date. He is so right in that. And he has a great line here where he says, you either prepare Aegon to rule or plea for Rhaenyra's mercy. I love this scene. And this is where I absolutely love this score we're seeing played under Alicent. We can call it Alicent's score. It is beautiful. Ramin Djawadi, I've said in my past reviews, is the GOAT of TV composing. And he just absolutely makes this episode go to another level with his music. So again, we saw in last episode, Alicent is really in the worst position. And she's facing these consequences of that, of feeling guilt about what happened to her dad, not wanting her dad to leave, and also being in the awful place of between your father and your best friend. But stuff gets more and more interesting with Alicent in this episode as it goes on, and slowly becomes my favorite character during this episode, and Emily Carey just knocks it out of the park. Now this is where Larys Strong, who's the son of the now promoted Lionel Strong, who's now the Hand, we see he's this observer character, but he's also a gossiper, and he says it's injustice to Alicent how her father was treated, but he lets her know that Viserys gave her tea and that she is supposedly seriously unwell. But Alicent's like, well, that's not true. She's going to Driftmark with her king now. And he's like, oh yeah, maybe I was wrong, but he did hear it was something serious. So this is already planting seeds in Alicent now that she's being lied to, not only by Rhaenyra, but by the king. She is out of the loop now. But there's also this looming mystery, and everyone was putting their theories on it last episode about, do we really know if it was even the king who gave that tea to Rhaenyra? And the biggest worrisome moment in this episode that lends me to think it's not the king who ordered that tea to Rhaenyra is because later on in the episode, the Grand Maester, when he's treating the king, he suggested a better treatment for the king's sickness, and he says no at it. So now it makes you question the Grand Maester and his ulterior motives, that he was choosing to do something that would make the king sicker and not help him more. So then I'm like, wait, maybe the Grand Maester himself just made the tea, or he was ordered by somebody else. It's really interesting, so I'd love to hear more theories about that. Especially knowing, too, that this tea has bad side effects and someone out to get Rhaenyra. Now, the production design of Corlys's chamber here is awesome. I love the hallway leading into it with all the Valyrian lore. And I also love, it looks like he's got also an adult Lego set behind his throne over there if you catch it. I thought that was nice. And I also like at one point Corlys has a trophy of the crab feeder's mask and he's just like taking it. I thought that was cool. But this is where Corlys first informs Viserys of what has happened with Daemon's wife. Viserys knows it was not a hunting accident. He knows Daemon is still doing his play. He wants his wife dead so he can have more claim to Rhaenyra. See, Corlys and Viserys comes to an agreement here because when he pitches to Corlys that he wants Laenor and Rhaenyra to wed, that Corlys wants something out of it, and he's like, the children will be named Velaryon, not Targaryen. But the only way Viserys agrees to it is that when said children become on the throne at any point, they will be a Targaryen. Will Corlys honor that? Probably not. And then interesting stuff happens here with Rhaenyra and Laenor when we see them together on the beach. Rhaenyra informs Laenor, like, look, you know, they're cousins. They've known each other for a while, and that they don't really have attraction to each other. There's nothing there. So they come to agreement that really this is, like Daemon said, a political marriage, and Rhaenyra is learning that game from Daemon and taking it here and saying, let's just, you know, have that facet of our marriage be satisfied elsewhere. We'll keep it our little secret. So they kind of agree to play the game with each other. It's interesting that Princess Rhaenys and Corlys know that Laenor is gay. And Corlys says he's still young, he will outgrow it, which Rhaenys knows is not true. And she's worried about the danger this is putting her son in, especially just being married to Rhaenyra because she is a controversial future queen. And Corlys is like, don't worry about that. We got ships, we got dragons, we'll be good. And then we meet Laenor's lover himself, who happens to be named Joffrey, which will trigger a lot of people. And he is so curious right from the start because he also wants to be Laenor's sworn protector. He wants to know in this agreement what is really happening with Rhaenyra so they don't get screwed in protecting Laenor. And he's like, well, she has a paramour of her own. I wonder who it is. So this is setting up what's going to be the crazy stuff that happens later in the episode, which we're going to get to. Now, it nicely transitions when he's talking about who her paramour is to Criston Cole on the ship with Rhaenyra. And Kristen's like, hey, you know, this isn't you, Rhaenyra. You're doing what you're against. You're marrying against your will. You're not marrying out of love. He knows that she loves him, but the problem here is that when he pitches to run away and be free and they can get married out of love, that she's basically straight up with him like, yeah, that's all great and all, but I'm not giving up my image for that. Her name will be in infamy. So she's rejecting him in this sense and brings him down to just being her side piece. And that's why he's like, so I'm your whore, basically, that, oh, cool, like, you got it arranged that on the side we can still do our thing, but he's not about that. He wants the true love and the true honorable thing to happen because that's what Kristen's character is all about. And he thought Rhaenyra was the same way, but Rhaenyra is showing you, just like all these Targaryens, that she has so much pride and honor to this name and bringing up the past with Targaryens and conquering and sounding a little more like Daemon. Because she even says the Iron Throne is bigger than all of us, and she includes in that her love with Criston. This will really break Kristen's heart because he believes that he threw away his oath and honor, obviously, by sleeping with Rhaenyra and choosing love over that, where she won't do the same for him. So where stuff starts to get interesting with Alicent is now that she knows about the tea happening and not getting this information from Rhaenyra or King Viserys, even if King Viserys, maybe he wasn't hiding that from her though, because he might have not actually been the one who sent that, still she's pissed and she's already dropped the Targaryen red and now she's wearing blue. What's so fascinating is Alicent summons Criston here when everyone gets back, and she also sees the king is really sick and doesn't give a shit. So she's already done with him. But she wants to see, her intention with Criston coming in was to see if this rumor now, knowing that the tea was given to Rhaenyra, that, hey, he's always got an eye on Rhaenyra. Did he happen to see Daemon and her get it on? But he's like, okay, it was me. I'm being honest here. I'm letting it out. And he's just like, I broke my oath. He's doing complete honesty with Alicent here. And he's like, I just hope I get a merciful death. But this is crazy because she's now learning what really happened, that it was Criston who actually had sex with Rhaenyra and not Daemon. But again, this is still really something that would piss Alicent off because Rhaenyra just did not give her this information, and she protected Rhaenyra, saying that she was innocent to her father and screwed her father in the process. So this, of course, would set Alicent off. She feels completely betrayed by her best friend. But she respects Criston here in his honesty, which will get payoff later on, because she does not send him to a merciful death or anything. She gives him complete mercy by saying, just go on. I don't care. Fine. You were honest and respects it. I've seen a theory that Viserys is getting poisoned from the start, when we saw in the first episode him touching his hand on the throne and bleeding, that this was what was actually causing his sickness. I wonder if that really is the case here, that the same person who sent the tea to Rhaenyra is the same person who was trying to possibly kill Viserys through the throne and cause a sickness. I'm really interested to hear what you guys think about that. And I just want to go back to that theme about this pride problem Targaryens have, and it happens with Viserys here too, because when he's near death here, he is talking to his new hand, and he's saying, I really didn't do anything iconic. I didn't conquer anything. There's going to be no songs about me. And Lionel, who always says a lot of truth, is just like, aren't you just happy you had a peaceful time? You did well. Why does there need to be songs about you? And it just goes back when I'm talking about this Targaryen pride, where that's what he's thinking about. He's not thinking about all the good he's done. He's just thinking about, like, he didn't do anything epic or iconic. So I like that kind of tied in well to Rhaenyra having that same gene that Daemon and Viserys have too, where there's just Targaryen pride clouding sometimes their judgment. Now, it's really cool now when they have this welcome feast, the big end piece of this episode, that the costume design's on point. In particular, what stood out to me was Rhaenyra having these red jewels in her hair. I thought that was really sick. And Alicent has this badass moment where, again, we hear this awesome score under her when she walks in late during the king's speech, and we learn that the green she's wearing is a sign of war from the Hightowers. So cool. And she gives shade vibes to Rhaenyra when she sees her. That was just great. She is pissed now at Rhaenyra and Viserys. They are dead to her. I screwed my own father to protect you, and you didn't tell me about what really happened. That is why she is so mad now. And she even has her uncle come up to her, who's proud of her and sticking up for the Hightower name after what happened to her father. But while this is going on, this is just Game of Thrones at its best, because there's so many relationships and drama happening between different people at once, and different just looks people are giving and plotting. And we see that Joffrey figures out who Rhaenyra's man is, and that it's Criston Cole, because he's staring at her intently while she's dancing with Laenor. And while this is happening, Daemon shows up, and Rhea's cousin is just shut down by Daemon. Rhea's cousin Gerald knows that Daemon killed her, and so does the king. So the king is just seeing Daemon still doing what he's doing. This is all setting his sickness just higher and higher. He's just had enough now. This drama will not end. And Daemon says an important line to Gerald and makes him sit down. He's just like, we have no kids, so I get what she had. I get the runestone. And also Daemon, during this, we're seeing his plotting. But there's a big moment where he talks to Lady Lena for a second, and they do a little flirting. So it makes me think, too, that his backup plan, if he doesn't get Rhaenyra, is to marry her in even the Vale. And then what's interesting is Joffrey then goes to talk to Criston, and he's like, we know each other's secrets. Let's swear to guard them and protect them. And if we keep them safe, then we'll be safe. So then craziness happens, because there's a misdirect here where Daemon grabs Rhaenyra. They start talking in Targaryen, and Rhaenyra knows what Daemon's doing, and she's like, well, then come on then. You're armed. You can take out the king's guard. I'm not married yet. Hours are moving quick. Then take me then. Let's see you do it. And he looks like he's about to kiss her. And Viserys sees this, which will also set his blood pressure to an all-time high and probably accelerate his sickness. But this is where the misdirect for the audience is, because you think something's happening with Daemon, because the vision's watching her screaming. But the twist is, it's actually Criston beating Joffrey to a pulp and to death. He also punches Laenor too, which is gonna probably have severe consequences as well. But Criston completely snapped here. One, he knows this man knows his secret now, which is a threat for Rhaenyra's life. But he's also just snapping too, because he's sick of this game and all this stuff that's happening, and him even talking with this guy about all this shit. He's over it. He's over the royalty, the house, the drama. He's a man of honor. So he completely snaps. And it's like the crazy ex-boyfriend at the party punching a hole in the wall. And you feel terrible for Laenor here. And it makes this wedding now completely depressing. And on top of the depressing wedding, Rhaenyra is thinking about Criston and him snapping, and knows she completely broke his heart. And he's about to kill himself too. And the surprise here is that Alicent shows up to him. So Alicent can use Criston now. She knows the truth of that situation, knows Criston is an honest man and trustable man. She knows that, so that could totally use to her advantage, and that he's done with Rhaenyra, and that it's never going to be the same between Rhaenyra and Criston after this. It's never going to be the same between Rhaenyra and Alicent after this. And on top of that, for Rhaenyra, Laenor is going to be messed up now in the head after this happening, and her father drops dead at this wedding. And you see the rats drinking the blood there. It closes out on that. So this, like I said last episode, to me is just the House of Dragons decaying and the rats are feasting on it, and this is just accelerating more and more as we go on. And to me, this was the best episode yet. It just beat the premiere for me. I gave the premiere a 9.4. I'm giving this one a 9.5. I was hooked from start to finish, but we're getting amazing writing and payoff between just this fascinating relationship between Alicent and Rhaenyra, and it's the heart of the show. And it was such a way for Emily Carey and Millie Alcock to go out. They both were ace here, and they were ace the whole season. So it's also sad to also miss Paddy Considine, who's going to be leaving us as Viserys. So I've never experienced this in a show where we've hit the midpoint. It's episode 5. We got 5 more to go. And now the second half, we got this new roster here of Olivia Cook and Emma Darcy. And they're playing the older versions of Alicent and Rhaenyra. So they have huge shoes to fill. It's going to be crazy, probably for them watching this and having to now have that pressure of people seeing the second half and constantly comparing it to the other two. But for us as an audience, is it going to click? Because I'm so attached now to these actresses and their characters that it's surreal to now be an older version of different actors. So we'll see how this goes, but I've never experienced this. I feel like we're going to start a new show next week, and it's definitely going to be missing Paddy Considine, which sucks too. He's been great, but it's just crazy to me because they really knocked it out of the park. So it's like an opening act at a concert just killing it, and now the pressure for the second act to go on after that. It's crazy, but I'm excited to see what even going to be like next week. And of course, we still get Matt Smith as Daemon, which is awesome, and the actor of Corlys. So it's going to be fascinating to see who they kind of keep as centerpieces here for the show and where this is going. Because now this is the divide they're clearly set between Alicent and Rhaenyra, really getting to the drama here. And I just fell in love with the character of Alicent in this episode. I thought she just had a lot of badass moments. And what's, again, great about George R.R. Martin, all these characters are gray in a sense. So it's just going to be interesting to see where all this all goes. But I'm pumped. I'm giving this one a 9.5. I thought it was so good. Let me know what you thought down below. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of House of the Dragon. I'm also doing Handmaid's Tale as well at the moment. And it really helps if you can give this a like. If you give a tip today, it helps in so many ways as well. Or become a member. You get exclusive perks like live streams. And again, this show is so competitive, so if you even share it, like it, tell people about it, it helps me in so many ways, and I really appreciate it. Follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me, and I'll see you next time.